PRIDoC was formed, it really was the three organizations, Te Ora, Aida, and Ahahui and Okauka, coming together in meeting and sharing our stories and realizing that we had the exact same challenges and realizing that we had a lot that we could learn from each other, and rather than each of us make the same mistakes, not reinvent the wheel and help each other. And so it was a really kind of powerful feeling to know that there were others that shared your story and that you could help each other. And we thought, wow, wouldn't it be great to have a forum for our members to come together and share their experiences, their research.
How bad is the situation? We can easily tell from the data. The mortality from chronic liver disease and liver cirrhosis was 6 times higher in Indigenous region.
Everyone was really excited because it was the first time that, significant numbers of us came together for something like this as physicians. There are other organizations that had been doing this, educators and mental health. So they've been doing this, but it's the first time that the physicians really did this. So everyone came super excited, and there was so much energy at the first one. It was really infectious. We were so happy to be together, that sister and brotherhood that was formed, realizing that we were making connections that were going to last for long times, bringing our students in, having our students get inspired by seeing what Indigenous doctors can do in other places. It was amazing, and I think a lot of it had just to do with that excitement and that energy, and we were all really happy.
PRIDoC was born on a golf course in some ways. It was born out of a recreational game of golf that Peter, myself, Martina Kamaka, and Ngaire Brown had back on Stradbroke Island, where we really consolidated a whole lot of thoughts that we had about how cool it would be to bring the different membership organisations together and to try and grow that kind of membership base. So whereas our first meeting was, I think, very much a fledgling meeting where many of the presentations were collegial presentations. They were about people's experiences, they were about the things that they do and the things that they face in their day-to-day work, but also quite a number of fantastic scientific presentations that are presentations that lead their own fields, so whether Indigenous or not.
We're really keen to talk to anybody who's interested in this. If you want, think about, will it work in your communities? Is it something that can be used elsewhere? You'll see Awhi Mai and Riripeti and Turopu and David sitting in the front row there, or any of us, do come up and just ask us, how did that work? What's the component? We'd be happy to talk to you.
The PRIDoC family has grown in number and it's grown in terms of the complexity of its activity. So we now have more member organisations that have joined PRIDoC. Grown particularly in terms of the number of students that come along, and that has always been one of the really important focuses for PRIDoC and for the member organisations, to try and generate interest in the young people.
Our students have all the pressures that medical students have, but they have a whole host of added pressures, and they can be things like their connection to their family, and connection to culture, which is a positive thing, but at times can drag them away from their role as a medical student, whereas they have to complete fairly intensive study. And certainly for our doctors and our students are often placed in positions where they really need to advocate strongly for our patients. Now, all doctors should do that, but our doctors are particularly in positions where they need to do that. And to have that support from other doctors is really important in that situation.
I think that every Indigenous medical student should attend PRIDoC. I think that's an experience you can't explain to someone. You have to get a sense of the modi, or the forces that you experience when you're here. It's not something you can tell someone about. You have to actually come and experience, and it's more than inspiration and legacy and aroha and love and friendship.
At its heart, it is a cultural event, and it's about who we are as Indigenous peoples that we bring to the table and to enrich our professions, for example, but also there is so much that we share that even though there may be several years between us coming back together, it's like we've never been apart. And there are so many unspoken truths that each of us understands that we don't need to go back over old ground. We just reconnect and we continue the conversation. And that's happened over millennia and over generations. And we ourselves, as what is essentially a very small group, are part of that bigger picture, and we're perpetuating ancient cultures in our own environments and with our own relationships. And so the people I see here, they reinvigorate me and they inspire me, and they are my touchstones professionally, but most importantly personally and culturally.
We're all coming from our various countries as Indigenous doctors of those countries, and which is tough as well, because we fight a hard fight and fight a hard battle to improve the health inequalities that I think we all experience in our own countries.
I don't use positional authority often because I don't like that.
As someone mentioned at one of the plenaries, this concept of oneness and of us being together as a family, bound by the Pacific, this big ocean, but people all connected through space and time. For me, that connection is what keeps me going. We've got a lot to learn from each other, but we've also got a lot to live for with each other.
My hope for the future of Indigenous health is that our nations will become strong as they once were, where our people are grounded in who they are as Indigenous people, that we have our own healers working alongside our own Western trained medical physicians equally, with the knowledge that they've learned over thousands of years and trained for.
Palo nganga ngora wen ginga jorda kware nyina ni ka ngayo kumalbara ngale wa gara ni kware nganga nga mono weyare ngoje nganga baloro nganga wen ge weyare ngubai ka ala jere ngoya here di nganga wen ge longo ka ngayo lokolo palo nyegeja wa gara ni weyare ngoje yadu.
I think we're extremely unique, and that's one thing that we offer that a lot of Australia and a lot of mainstream populations around the world in which Indigenous people live really need, which is a deep-rooted understanding of how important it is to be connected. Not just to each other as people, but connected to our traditions, our country, the teachings that we've had over the generations passed down from our grandparents. Our connection to the culture and stories of place, and our connection to all people on earth, which is really an understanding that we as doctors try to bring into our practice.
PRIDoC has that opportunity to influence public health policy for the Indigenous peoples in the Pacific region. We've spoken and heard of the connectedness between land, country and culture, and health and well-being. So it's important for the whole range of initiatives that need to occur to improve health outcomes that the whole health community gets behind this, and the whole health community works to improve that, closing that gap that's so important.
Can I say all power to you, wherever you're from, whether it's Hawaii or Taiwan. It's really very important that you are here, that you share your learnings with one another, and you provide insights to not only amongst yourselves, but to people like myself and government policy makers.
The thing that we learned when we started getting together was the experiences were strikingly similar. We had the same issues for supporting our Indigenous medical students, for striving for excellence amongst Indigenous doctors, and wanting to have some influence over all sorts of things, health policy for Indigenous peoples, shaping the health system, lots and lots of areas of influence that we wanted to have, but primarily to support students and doctors to be as good as they could be.
It helps me understand where we need to go. And it reminds me when I go home that I have to listen to our community groups, right? And really listen, not just superficially, but really listen to the groups. And so just those kinds of examples, there's always something new that happens no matter what. And that's why I enjoy coming to these gatherings.
I thought she was about like 20. Oh, really? Yeah.
We share, we listen to each other, and the echoes go backwards and forwards, and we hear the same story from different lands around the Pacific.
We have the same goal for our future, so I want to take the experience, and maybe we should think about the policy or something. Back to Taiwan, we help our Indigenous people.
My vision for PRIDoC is that we can get much more active in our public advocacy and policy in support of each other's countries.
I think it's a great opportunity to harness the potential and the expertise of our membership and use it to drive change in the Pacific. So whether that's about academic, cultural and professional exchange and development, whether it's about research collaborations, whether it's about service delivery, we have all of that as Indigenous peoples. So why not Indigenous physicians for Indigenous populations in the Pacific? And so engage in the international arena through WHO and the UN, for example, as well as at the local and grassroots level from which we emerge and to which we remain connected, and use that to actually bring everything up for all of us.
I like this little quote at the moment, which is taken a bit from someone else called Donna Awatiri, and I dream of a time when it's safe to be born an Indigenous child. That's my hope for the future of Indigenous health.
Just as each of our national organisations punches way above its weight in terms of its numbers, but its influence is way above its small numbers, the same will be true of PRIDoC. We will have a force internationally out of all proportions to our numbers.